All right, before we get started, let's make a copy of your Billy Bass or whatever your Jingle Bells thing was, so that if you jack it all up, you've got a backup copy. So do that by going and duplicate, and then that will create a copy of it. Let's do that in the copy, and that way, if something gets messed up, you've got a backup. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and let's talk about how to create your, we'll call it a Jingle Bells burglar alarm, right? We're gonna put this up by the fireplace, and when Santa comes down, it's gonna sense his motion and play Jingle Bells for us, right? So, all right. It is December if you're watching this video at a different time. So let's talk about how we do this. We already coded our Jingle Bells, so here's mine. All right, so the code looks like this. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. Move myself over here. And if you didn't do this in the first place, but you want to do this activity, you can just copy this into the code, and you can use that. All right, so right now I'm on blocks. We're going to talk about text, so let's go blocks and text and take a look at what we've got going on over here. So first of all, whenever you do a repeat, it sets you up with an integer already. And anytime you do it, it just says counter, counter 2, counter 3, so on and so forth. I've got 2 of them, so there's 2 counters in here. Now, that integer is set up outside of running any code because it's just setting up an integer. And now it will, within the code, we will set what that integer is. So this is C++ language, which follows some certain parameters. As we spoke of before, the word void is setting up a function that you've got your setup where the computer is going to read that once. And then you've got your loop that the computer is going to run over and over and over again. So in between these curly brackets is going to be what's being run. Now, I was going to have you type a bunch of stuff in, and I've decided I'm just going to have you move things in the text rather than recreate. So I'm going to keep it simple, keep it easy for you. Right now, I can't type anything. Typing on my keyboard, nothing goes into the text because the text is based on the blocks right now, okay? So we're going to keep focused on the blocks, and then we'll switch to text in just a minute. All right, so first of all, you're in pin mode 7 because right now, the only thing that I've set up in here is pin 7. So there's no need to recognize everything. So let me turn off code for a second. Even though I've got stuff coming out of pin 4 here, it doesn't see it because I never set that up. But it did set up pin 7, which is right here. So I'm going to have you do a few things. Please do this exactly as I do it. So you've got your Jingle Bells song going on. Leave that as it is, okay? Make sure everything's together and clean and in kind of one big chunk. Again, you can copy me on this if you want to. Then we are going to set up the other one by, eventually I'm going to get an input. Now, I'll talk about what that means in just a minute, but we're going to read digital pin. I'm going to drag it down here. So everything I do is going to be down here in the bottom. Now, look what happened when I did that. Now I've got a pin mode at 0 that is an input. So if I throw that in the trash, look, gone from text. So I've got that in there now. My pin mode is going to be 4. If you'll recall, that's now going to be an input. Okay. If it's reading an input. There's no reason. When it plays the speaker, it automatically says that's an output. Okay. Now, we're only going to play this if the sensor is at 1, right? So a digital pin means it's either getting a 1 or a 0 as an input. Because it's digital, right? So you're not getting a range of values like an analog sensor would. We'll get to those later on. So I'm going to drag my control over here, or go into my control, and I want an if-then statement, okay? So if, actually, I think I'll do an if, then, and an else statement. No, I won't do that. I think I can just do an if-then statement. Now, notice that we put that in there, and now it's got an if down here at the bottom, okay? So it automatically sets us up with if something happens, and there's the curly braces that's going to run whatever set of code. I have no code. I don't even have a condition in here. So the next thing is where we're going to put a condition in. And that's where the math part comes in. Now, we're going to put in this guy that says, okay, if something is less than something else, equal to something else, whatever else, this is our condition that we're going to drag into that spot. Notice that it highlights it. Okay, and it already says now if 1 is less than 1, that will never happen, right? That's false. So what we're going to do is now we're going to drag this into that spot. When it highlights, let go of it. And now look, it says if digital read of 4 is less than 1, okay, now what I'm going to do, I think, is rather than say less than 1, I think I'm going to say if it's greater than 0. Zeros sometimes are weird. Hopefully this will work the right way. If not, we'll fix it later. Because that means if it's on, it's going to do all of this stuff, okay? Now that we're set up with everything that we need, now we're ready to go ahead and do this thing. Okay, I'm just kind of checking everything to make sure that we're good. And I think that I am. So here we go. Now that we're done kind of setting everything up, okay, what I want you to do is go to text. Now, what's going to happen is it's going to get rid of all of your blocks are going to be gone because you can't do text and it blocks. It'll show you your text, but you can't manipulate the text while you're programming with blocks. So we're going to go to text. It's going to say, are you sure? Because it's going to delete all the blocks. Okay. Because you made a copy, we're sure. Okay. And now we're looking only at the text. All right. Now, this void loop, right, is going to run everything. This is everything I put into the blocks all the way through, and it includes that if statement. All I want you to do is one thing, okay? It's pretty simple. First of all, I'm going to go in front of that curly brace that's in the if statement, and I'm going to hit enter to have that go to a new line because I want some space in here. And I'm going to go on the inside of that curly brace and hit enter again. You've got to make sure you do this right because remember, in between these things is going to be what's being run in between the curly braces, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this stuff. Now, this is the ending curly brace. This is the starting curly brace for what's being looped. I'm not dealing with this stuff, okay? I'm leaving that alone. That's what it's going to run over and over and over again. So I want it to do that if that pin 4 is greater than 0. If not, it's going to skip that and it's not going to do anything, okay? So you can't copy this top one or your whole loop never starts, okay? So we got to be careful about what we're selecting here. And what we're selecting is all of this stuff up until that curly brace without leaving that curly brace. And I'm going to Control X to cut it, okay? And then I'm going to go in between my curly braces. Notice I added a space in there, and I'm going to hit Control V, okay? And now within this if statement is all of that stuff happening, All right, so looks good. Let's start our simulation and see how we do. I'm going to close the code down. Now, what should happen is nothing's going on right now because the value coming out of this is 0. If I click on this and move it, and I move the dot that's in there, whoops, and maybe I have to grab the dot. There we go. Now, it will run all the way through that code, even though this switches back to 0 within a second or two, because it's going to run all the way through that code before it goes back and checks it again. Okay, cool. So now anytime anybody runs into the sensor, and that's why it's the Billy Bass assignment, because the thing on the fish on the wall, when you walk by it, will do its song thing. Okay, cool. So your job is going to be to take this code and you're just going to select all of it, copy it. You could take a picture of it if you want. Either way works with me. And put that into the assignment. So if you used your own song, it'll look slightly different than this, probably than mine, which is cool. All right. And hope it all worked out. Hope you had fun. See you next time.